Have you ever wondered how your cycle can affect your business or your career? Today I'm joined by the incredible Emily Todd, who is a menstrual health and feminine embodiment educator who's the founder of the Femm Collective. And Emily works on some incredible work supporting women to understand their cycles, work on their mindset, and step back into empowerment. Today we're going to be talking all about what it takes to run a mission-driven business, grounded in lived experience, but also how you can build a fulfilling career around your cycle. And I'm really excited to get into this episode, and I hope you enjoy it too. Hello and welcome, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love it if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the journey that you've been on so far to get to where you are today.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Emily. I'm 25 now, and I live literally just turned 25 now, and I live on the Isle of Man, which is like, I think, such like a unique thing to me because I'm like an island girl. And yeah, I'm a menstrual health coach and a feminine embodiment coach. And my journey really started, I would say, in this career, in this industry, probably about 4 years ago now, when I really kind of turned into kind of the world of holistic health, and going on that kind of like journey, which has been amazing. And I would say it's been about 3 years now, which is crazy, but since I began Femm Collective, which is a menstrual health educational business that I started on the Isle of Man. And essentially it kind of started back when I was at university. But when I was at university, I was actually studying visual communications. And prior to that, I'd actually studied footwear design, which is wild. But which I always think back now and I'm like, it's crazy how like we pivot, but so, important. And I'm really a big advocate for people, pivoting if they feel necessary, because I think sometimes we can get stuck in feeling like that's it for us, like when we go into uni. But, I was so young. I had studied art and design from, college, and that had been my passion and still is my passion. But yeah, so I pivoted from that, did visual communications, which is amazing. But I really found my love for holistic health because of my own struggles and my own health struggles when I was during my university degree. I'd always suffered really bad with my gut health, and I always suffered with my periods. And so I kind of, for my last year, really just decided to fully embody it, and go fully down this route. And yeah, it was such an interesting one because obviously it's design, it's art, and I actually ended up kind of collaborating the two by writing and illustrating a book for teenagers all about periods, all about their menstrual cycle, their menstrual health. And I did that with my degree, which was perfectly tied both of them together. And it was so well received and it was funded. I got funding from the Arts Council over here. And yeah, it took off. And I thought I really need to like go for this because obviously with menstrual health it's such a taboo. Obviously not many, back then I think it was like one of those things that my tutors were kind of a bit like, okay, she's going down this route, like really quite wary of like really what it was gonna do because no one, people don't really speak about it. And so yeah, it ended up doing really well. And I then decided to train as a coach, a menstrual health coach and facilitator. And since the book and building Femm Collective, I've gone on to speak in schools, multiple schools on the island, all about menstrual health for the girls in there. Delivering my books and giving out my books to the schools, to libraries across the island, and also going into a lot of corporate offices and doing a lot of workshops for people in corporate workplaces, and teaching them all about how they can really understand their menstrual health better for their productivity, for their life, for their well-being, for everything. And so yeah, I'm really proud of what we've achieved like so far on the island. And yeah, it's kind of, that's the first kind of entry point, and I'm really really proud of myself for kind of pushing myself into those spaces. And public speaking, it's not easy, and I hope to continue. But yeah, I'm also going down like a new path as well. But yeah, it's crazy to think that it was so long ago, and I really had no idea, like genuinely, when I started the business, like it was just about education, and it just evolved into this amazing thing. And like I say, because I'm from the Isle of Man, so unique to me, that it's different over here, because you can really create kind of a name and create a momentum for yourself, because it's so small and there's a lot of word of mouth. And so yeah, I've kind of become this like menstrual health, I would say, girl on the island, because there's no one else doing the workshops that I'm doing here, which is, yeah, it's unique, got unique advantages, got unique disadvantages, but it's been a whirlwind. So yeah, if that's like a synopsis of me getting into this point. But it's been like such a journey from my childhood, really.
I love that, and I feel like we have very similar journeys. Like I think I've told you before, but I started my first business at university. I made it my final year project, which was all around anxiety. So it's very similar in terms of like a personal struggle that we've both experienced, and kind of using our degrees, which were both creative, to try and turn that into something like a product or a book or like a platform to help other people as
Mm.
well. And I think that's so inspiring. I mean, were there anybody else on your course doing something similar, or were you very different to kind of what the direction they were going in with their final year?
I would say that I definitely had more of a unique direction, to the point where I really wanted to like utilize my skills as a designer in order to like produce something that was going to like help and maybe like live on and educate. But the girls we did a lot of, there was, believe it or not, there was 4 people on my degree.
Wow.
Yeah. So but the girls all had amazing things. They were all very like product based, I would say, but mine was, had that like unique aspect to it. And kind of during my degree, I ended up getting like nominated for some awards, and I ended up winning them. And I think it really, really helped me in that sense, just because I'd got funding, and that was something that I did uniquely to my, to trying to boost my degree, really. And all of the funding and like the nominations and stuff, I think just allowed me to, end up doing really well. Even though it's so interesting, because the first 2 years of my degree, I would say, I struggled, but the final year, I really went for it and did really well in the end.
Yeah, no, that's so good. And I think, did you think about your final year as like, I want to use this to unlock future opportunities in my career, maybe even start a business? Was it kind of intentional, or was it like, I'm just going to follow this interest of mine and see where it takes you?
Yeah, 100%. I think the amazing thing about my degree was that the business side of things, they really encouraged that, and it was kind of part of it to kind of leverage the understanding now, to in order for you to then potentially build something out of it. And so I'd always had a passion for wanting to do something myself, or build something myself. And so I think, just harnessed the opportunity that I was given in uni. And yeah, that was always on the forefront of my mind, but definitely, like, I really wanted it to be about a passion of mine, a purpose of mine. And so for my final, like when I went into my final year, like it was very kind of self-directed, and we had a lot of like the autonomy to do whatever we wanted to do. And so I really like utilized it, because the first 2 years, like I'd always brought up wanting to doing like, go into the health side of things, into holistic well-being. And it was like, yeah, that's fine. But then in my final year, I was like, this is my time now. And I just like ran with what I knew I was good at and what I knew was going to work. And I think deep down, I always knew that there was like something around the menstrual health space that was going to flourish for me, even when people didn't necessarily think that was the case, to be honest.
Yeah, I think sometimes like when you've got an idea and you can really or you really understand a problem, you're able to see that gap. You're able to see there's a problem that needs to be solved here that other people aren't looking at right now. But if you're not so close to the problem, people sometimes can say like, I don't know why you're going down that route. That seems very random. That seems very rogue. But it sounds like obviously you've had your own personal experiences with this, being on the island. Is there any are there any other menstrual health coaches on the island, or is it mainly just you like leading the way with this?
Honestly, there isn't any specifically, because there's a lot of coaches, life coaches. There's a lot of like naturopathic, health doctors. There is those type, but specifically like had my training because it's unique to the fact that although I guess health coach, it all kind of comes under the same like work and understanding. But because mine was specifically menstrual health, I have kind of more of that leverage where it was very tailored, but also broad as well. Whereas I think if I were to maybe do more of a broader holistic health, you don't go as much in depth and in detail as the work that I did when it comes to the menstrual cycle. And so no one has that like specific, the specific cause, but there is other people, but who are probably targeting a broader audience than I am at the moment. But I think with health, with mindset, with health and wellbeing, it kind of, although you are a menstrual health coach, it always just opens more doors to lots of different things. And I always feel like our cycles are like the key and they like unlock so much for women, especially like in our health. I think they are like the epicenter of a lot of things, of everything, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's really good to have like a unique point of view and a unique approach to things because it really does help you stand out. And I think when we first met, I was like, oh, I'm so interested in all this stuff. Like, I think it so needs to be talked about. And I mean, I guess this is maybe where your inspiration came from, but I think even like if we look back 10 years ago, nobody was speaking about this. Like there was nothing really out there to talk about these topics, and they were very taboo. I mean, they still are to a certain extent now, but they're definitely getting a little bit better. But do you ever come up against that when you're trying to break into these spaces, that people are still pushing back against, why are we talking about these things, why are they important? Do you ever experience that at the moment?
Yeah, very interestingly, at the start of my career, I think I had a couple of articles that maybe gone out in the press about what I was doing. Maybe I was doing something in the community. And I remember getting a couple of comments underneath, in the comment section, like just questioning like what even a menstrual health coach is and like how, and like also making jokes about it. And just, yeah, people being quite like totally ignorant to like the fact and just thinking like, yeah, how is that even how is that even a career and how how is that even a thing? And so that was really interesting. And it's really difficult, I think, especially a lot of women, even like my nan, for example, like when she read my book, she was like, Emily, I literally have no idea about any of this. And I was like,
Wow.
it's quite wild. And I'm like, it's crazy that they've lived their whole life like not understanding any of the book. Because I just think now that that's like basic information really on your cycle, like it's not even in depth. And so even a lot like women would comment and stuff being like, oh, just like who are maybe older generation, just being like, oh, it's ridiculous these days, like just get on with it like I did, like everyone's so, and all of those kind of bundled comments would come through a lot. And it's sad because obviously they're that generation that didn't get any support and they didn't have any compassion and they dealt with their issues and that was just the way it was. But it should have never been like that in the first place. And, it's really important. So it can be difficult when you do come up against comments like that, because, we're really trying to inspire a new way of being, which is what we should have always been from the start. And really understanding the menstrual cycle is like super, super important. So, but yeah, I guess a lot of the comments probably do come from like men in their like 50s. So, you know,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, it's difficult for them to understand, I suppose. Like,
I'm
then
like,
it's just not related to them.
yeah, I'm like, you don't have you shouldn't have the ability to comment in these
Yeah.
posts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like if it can benefit so many people, why are you trying to shoot it down? Why are you trying to
Yeah.
stop people from accessing this kind of support? I mean, what has been one of the biggest things that you've learned since learning more about your cycle and your menstrual health? Was there a big like unlock for you, or like has it been more like a gradual journey of like discovering more about yourself with it?
I think it was probably like the bridge between like me going from like just not really having much awareness of my body to me having like a deep awareness. And I think the biggest one was when I first kind of got into this work was learning about the cycle phases. I had no idea that, going through high school, even into college, I had no idea that we had 4 phases, that we, had a menstrual phase and an ovulation phase, and we'd feel different and we'd need different things and different, supplements, different food, different workouts, and all of those things. And when I realized that, it it's almost like when you don't have the awareness, you just you just carry on as, life goes on. As soon as the awareness comes into your head, it's almost just like this realization. You just go through this like whole realization of like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And you just start noticing all of these things. And it's like, wow, I've always been like this. And I've just never been given the awareness or been given the tools to actually like unlock that. And so I think the understanding my cycle phases and really going on that journey, and just having so much more compassion for myself when I was on my period, and giving myself that space and that time, when I was bleeding and I was having a bad time. It really, I think, yeah, it unlocked that deeper awareness that I just never had. And I think, yeah, that was probably one of the most like amazing parts of my life to kind of bring me to where I am now. And I always think back to those moments because like it's such a massive realization and it just changes your life really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I've always kind of battled with is like balancing the kind of whole hustle culture side of running a business of like should be go 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 all the time. Obviously, it has been and still is to an extent a very male dominated space, which they work on a very different cycle to what we do. And I think it's kind of hard to go from being around that space and that kind of energy of like you should be go 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 all the time to then really leaning into your cycle and thinking actually there's like seasons within this. And I know this is what you've like spoken about before, and kind of like how you really need to lean into like the different phases as well. Did you experience that kind of battle against like should I be working all the time and then really leaning into that cycle?
100%. I think that is still something that like I still struggle with because it's really hard. And also I always think about this back, when you're in college and you're at university, like they do not take, exams or pressure or deadlines, or they do not take your menstrual phases into account. Like you are pushing yourself. Like for the last year of my degree, and I think this was one of the reasons why I really wanted to go for it as well, was I lost my period because of stress. And I was like, this isn't right. Like I shouldn't be this, like, I shouldn't be put under this much stress and pressure to the point where, like, my health has deteriorated because of it. And therefore, I've lost my period, because losing your period is such a big indicator that, health wise, something's really off and it's not right, because your body's like being protective, and it's amazing, like, what the body does, because obviously it's like stopping the whole journey of potentially getting pregnant because you might not be your fullest self and your health might not be there. So it's just incredible that can happen, but still, being pushed to those extents, when in areas like university, in work, I think it's such a shame that it doesn't like, obviously it's like you can't, what are you going to do about it? It's really changing it. So when I started my own business and when I went down this route, I always promised myself that whilst I couldn't control those things at uni, at school, and like I wonder how long it would take to change that. I don't know how many years that would take. It'd be like 100 years before they even change the schooling system and take, the phases into account because, it runs on a 24-hour male cycle, and our rhythms have not been taken into account when it comes to work, school, uni, all of those things. And so when I did start my own business, it was so important for me that I worked in like tandem with it. And it's great, obviously, being freelance. It's, you can really, allow that. And I think that was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to be, because I wanted to be like, you're on your period, like give your, the next 3 days of like rest and like, basic work and even just structuring your day. So, when you're wanting to work on new projects or you're wanting to do something a bit more in depth, you do it during your follicular or your ovulation. Whereas, you might not be pushing yourself during your period. It's all those little things I think make such a huge difference and have really benefited me. And yeah, it's hard though because it's not always like that. And especially in corporate offices, that's obviously why it's so important that I go in and try and tell them the little things they can do because, it's not built for them working in tandem with the menstrual cycle. It's just not.
No, it is really challenging, and I think it depends also how open your employer is to supporting that as well. I think that's a huge kind of education piece, and I know you do a lot of stuff through social media and LinkedIn. How have you found that in terms of like the messaging around it? Like, has that been like obviously you're an educator as part of what you do as well. So is the education piece quite a big part of what you do, and how have you found sharing that message and the impact that it's had?
The education side is such a massive part of it. And it's really interesting because part of the time I think the education that I'm doing when it comes to offices and corporate spaces, it's like there's only so much you can do. And sometimes I often think that when you are in those corporate spaces, it can feel more like a tick box exercise rather than something that they're passionate about and they want to bring forward. And so as much as I love to educate staff and like try and help them, it's actually like the managers that you need to like get into a lot more and the people who are higher up because they're the ones that can implement change. And if they understand it, then they can really, make differences. And so that's a challenge. And I find when I am educating on LinkedIn, I think, you know, yes, I am educating the staff when I do go in and when I do the workshops, but it's the people higher up, and I'm like, maybe it's still not quite there. And recently there was, well, actually, this was quite a few years ago now, but there was menopause legislations brought in that everybody has to have, a space, a menopausal like room and a space for women, and also all officers have to have the education and have to, especially managers, they have to be educated on it. Whereas with the menstrual health side, it's just not quite there with legislations. And I think genuinely when it comes to education on top tier level with those kind of people who can make differences, until the legislations are actually brought forward, I don't think it's going to be a priority. And even when I push it out, but the education for just people, for mums, for dads, for women in their 20s, 30s, I think the work that I do on social media makes such a difference. But there's definitely an area in, broader sense, people who can make big differences in those spaces. Even schools, it's still runs quite short, but I do my best on socials.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, you're doing so much, and I think we've spoken about this a little bit before as well. But I think as a founder and or as an educator or kind of however you want to refer to yourself, I think it's so hard when you're working in the social impact space when you're trying to drive forward change, and it's hard because you're pushing up against so many barriers, challenges, like you're saying, like this so many layers to the dynamics in a workplace that you're trying to really break through and make a difference, but you can't do it alone. How is there anything that you've done along the way to really help look after you in that process? Because it takes a lot of energy, doesn't it, to kind of keep pushing up against those challenges. So yeah, if anybody else is working in that sort of social impact space, or they're trying to challenge some norms or some of the things in society that they
Yeah.
want to see change, like what has been beneficial for you in that?
Yeah, like being in like the social impact, I think it's funny how I just it's funny how I just decided, like I just went down that route. Like it
Yeah.
almost just happened to me. And then I just started becoming an advocate, and it just slowly started happening. Um but you're right, it can take a toll on you. And I think for me, like it's funny because I always think like, what am I? And am I an educator, a founder? Like, am I still a coach? Am I just this advocate? Like, what, I'm still like struggling to like figure out what I am, because it's massively difficult, because especially when you are doing something that's all about kind of, I guess, health, social impact, change, it's like a lot of times I think people might look at me as if I'm more of a social enterprise or a charity, and that can be really difficult because I'm not. And I'd thought about going down that route, and I still think about whether I pivot and I do, create something social enterprise, a charity or something along those lines, and it may be suited better, because it is a struggle when you're up against this kind of situation, and I've found that a lot. But it does take an impact on you. And I think for me, like looking after myself, and I'd say for anybody in this space, I think if you have been drawn to this space, like just know that that's like your purpose. And like I think people who get put into these positions, it's like that's for a reason. And it's not just your average day to day, that would take up something like this, because it's so difficult. And I think you're just made to be almost like an advocate or a preacher for the right things, and a change maker, and it's just almost part of your nature. And so although it can be really tough, and I do find it can be draining sometimes, looking after myself mentally, like my well-being, obviously being like a coach and obviously loving everything to do with holistic well-being, I began doing a lot of breath work, kind of, I would say maybe like almost 2 years ago, probably now. Lots of meditation, lots of journaling. Literally, I do so. Like, I would probably say that takes up so much more of my time now. It's like yoga every morning, breath work at night. Just really leaning into that, looking after yourself, because it mentally and your well-being takes a toll when you are doing something, you are pushing. And I mean, even just being a founder, like being a solopreneur, whatever it is, I think more so than ever, it is so important to like look after that side. And I'm grateful to have the tools, which is also another amazing thing about, training as a coach, is you learn so much of the tools that not only help others, but totally help yourself, as a founder and starting a business. And so, yeah, they have been like, it's just game changing for me, and something that I know will be a part of my life forever.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the things about being a founder that I love the most, because you just constantly learn so much about yourself. You're constantly trying to like, especially if you're learning stuff for your clients as well, you're learning stuff for them, but you're also implementing it on yourself. So it's a really big learning journey of like, okay, how can I look after myself better? Like, am I burning out? Like, am I doing too much? Okay, do I need to lean more into the wellness side of things? Do I need to lean into working on my routine, like you're saying, like plan around your cycle, making sure that you're really resting when you need to and recharging your energy? Because especially in the social impact space and the kind of change making space, you can't help others if you haven't refilled your cup first. So I think it's a really huge part of it. And I think we've both been on very similar journeys of working in social impact businesses, being set up as a business and not a charity, or not as a CIC or something like that, because it is really difficult, especially as a solo founder as well, because often set up charities and CICs, you need a board and you need other people to support you as well. So I think it's a constant challenge of like, okay, I've really got this idea, I want to push it forward, but I want it to be financially sustainable on its own without relying on grants and other kind of funding, even though you are working in that social impact space. So it is, I'm still in that kind of phase, a little bit like you, where you're like, oh, should I register as that? Should I change? Because of the work that you're doing is so focused on social impact, but you also can see there's so much value in it as well, that it is a service that deserves to be paid for too. When you set up the Femm Collective in the beginning, what was your like first step with the business?
So my first step with the business was, honestly, when I first started, it was like it wasn't actually going to really be a business. So it started out as it was just a social media platform. It's just an Instagram platform. And I then obviously, as the book came out and then it just started picking up, I was like, I think I need to register this. So like I fully registered my business name. That was like my first like business step. And luckily my granddad, he's an accountant, and so he was like very, very helpful with like knowing what to do, how to set it up properly, and like going down, because really I had no business background, like literally none. And then I like found my domain, registered my domain, like got all the things to like lock Femm Collective in as like what I wanted it to be. And yeah, I think it's so funny though, because I always think back to those moments, because I genuinely had no I didn't even do business as a GCSE. I didn't do it as an A level. I literally did not do business in any sense. It was almost like a lot of my family around me have got their own businesses, and my nan does, my uncle does, my granddad does, and I think I've watched them, not realizing that I was picking things up potentially, and I almost just feel like it's in me as who I am, because a lot of people around me were, and I think to that now, because I wonder where I kind of got that business initiative or go, and I think it is the people around me that I had seen, even some of my close, like my mum's friends who were really close to me, as like when I was younger, like were freelancing or doing their own thing, and I was always around that, and I was always like susceptible to looking at the people that were freelancing and have their own businesses, rather than being like, I guess I wonder if I hadn't had all those people around me doing their own thing, whether I would have been as, keen or to do it, because yeah, I didn't study it. But yeah, sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent then.
I think it is really important to like, when you look back, you're like, I noticed where that came from. Like I noticed that maybe I picked up a little bit of inspiration from there. But yeah, I think surrounding yourself with people that are maybe running businesses or just opening your mind to it as a career path is really interesting, and it can just spark, like you said, like you don't always go into it like I didn't with my first business, the Calming Club. I designed a product first and then I opened it up into a business afterwards, because I was like, okay, this actually has got somewhere that it could go, let's see what could happen with this. But you don't always go into it if you've not got a business background. Like a lot of the people that I meet that are founders didn't do a business degree. They often did something completely different and then went down that path later. So I think that's really interesting. Did you ever consider like going down a more traditional career path when you graduated, or was it like, actually I'm going to give myself the time to really explore this and see where I want it to go?
Honestly, I think I had maybe, so I did actually work in an office. I worked when I first finished my degree. I was a graphic designer, and it unfortunately, the place that I was in, and I actually was like kind of poorly treated in there, which also solidified my decisions, which I think also happened for a reason. But yeah, it kind of working that traditional 9 to 5 and being, I'd even done it earlier. I'd worked in an office for a year before I went to university originally, and for me, I just knew that that was never going to be my path. And I think just as the person that I am and the way I work, and I just love being able to like now just structure my day to me, and my cycle, like where I'm at, and it's just something that I find, yeah, really freeing. And I think there's this element of freedom that comes in. I just feel when I was in that 9 to 5, I didn't feel free. I felt like I'm just somebody else's doer. Like I was, you know what I mean? I wasn't my own. And the freedom element that comes with, doing, being, I even worked in a cafe for about 6 months before I got my freelance gig. And it was because I couldn't take going back to a 9 to 5. And I'd got a full degree. I had like a first degree. And I'm there like washing dishes. And everyone must be thinking, you're mad. And I'm like, there's just no way, because I wasn't stepping back into that door, because once you're out, I was like, I'm ready to go. Do you know what I mean? I was
Yeah.
like, no.
Yeah, I think sometimes you do need that like push, don't you, to be like, right, I'm actually going to give this a go and I'm going to take the leap. Like I graduated in 2021 and it was obviously COVID, so that whole time was very interesting. And I think
Yeah.
it almost set, I don't what year did you graduate from uni?
So I graduated uni. Oh my goodness, when is it now? This is really interesting. 2023.
Okay, so a little bit later, so kind of like yeah, you were at uni during that kind of turbulent time of like what's going on. Yeah.
Because with obviously COVID year,
Yeah.
I was in Leicester doing footwear design, and then I came home because of COVID,
Yeah.
and I actually did an internship for a year before I went back to uni, and that's why I finished a bit late, but I did a digital learning design internship for a year, which was like amazing because it really helped you, like especially going into doing workshops and all those things. It was amazing because it was all about creating like online learning. And so then I went to uni, and then I finished just that bit later.
Yeah, it's a really like weird time, wasn't it? And I think that time for me in 2021, when the world was still a little bit all over the place, it really gave me that push because I'd been kind of building my business for the last 18 months, sort of 2 years at that point. As I did like a placement year, which was like a work for yourself year where you could start a business or an idea if you wanted to, which was amazing. And then I kind of went into industry or into the working world and then literally got a freelance contract and went from there, but it didn't kind of, I didn't know that was going to happen, but it was really that just like push of like the uncertainty at the time. Let's just give this a go, let's just take that leap and see what happens. But I was very similar to you, that I could really not see myself working in a 9 to 5, like that idea of
Yeah.
doing that for the next 30 to 40 years of my life. I was
I
just like,
know.
I'm just gonna be so bored, because I think
Scary.
as founders we love variety. And I don't know about you, like I love the fact that there's so many different parts of what I do. Like sometimes I'll be at
Mm,
events, sometimes I'll be delivering sessions, sometimes I'll be working one to one, like, or designing content. Like there's such a variety of things that we do. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's parts of it that I don't enjoy as well, but there's definitely like a variety of different things that you do within your business. But what would you say is your favorite part of running your business?
Oh, do you know what? So interesting. Like the variety thing is like such a big one for me, because actually, so as well as Femm Collective, I'm also a freelance marketer, and I must love variety because my day can be like filled with just so many different things, because I'm doing that, but I'm also building Femm and still doing all of those things, and so it's also splitting my time, and that's something that I've really had to work on, because that's also can be very overwhelming, doing a lot of different things. But when you thrive, and as a founder you do thrive with those, different varieties and stuff, and I think it took me some time to get used to, but I love it. I love that change. But I think my favorite thing about running my business, I think it's just, I would just say, I don't know, like I just love work. Like this is, I think, really difficult for some people to understand, but I just love working for like on my own and like for myself. And I love that I found people like you and spaces that I can have, bounce ideas off, but just having that autonomy and like being the decision maker really, and being the, and yes, that can be difficult, like yes, that can be hard and it can be challenging, but in the grand scheme of things, when it is super successful, like being able to look back and being like, that was you, like that was mostly all of you. And I think from a child, I've always been very independent, like from very, very young. And I think just having that independence in just, this is my space, this is my bubble, this is what I'm building. As much as yes, sometimes I would, and sometimes it's nice to have someone next to you. But luckily I've found people to, when I need the brainstorm or when I need to bounce ideas off, I can, but I'm still in my space and in my zone. So that is probably one of my favorite things. And also obviously the empowerment side, and just the unbelievable amount of like amazing feedback that I get. I'll be like on a night out and people will come up to me and be like, I got my PCOS diagnosis because of you. And
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
it's crazy. And I'll just be like, and loads of girls I've never met, they come up to me like they know me and like they're just like my mate because I've done all this stuff. And I love it because I'm like, I don't know you, but literally they're like, thank you so much. So that is such an amazing part about it. I love that part of my business for sure.
Oh no, that's incredible. I think the power to like have an idea and then turn it into something real that then goes on to help people is just, you can't beat it. You honestly
Yes,
can't beat it. Yeah, and it's so lovely. Like, and I think that's one thing with like, I suppose when you're sharing content and you're posting stuff online and maybe it doesn't get as much engagement as you want, or maybe you're like, oh, it's not actually bringing in the clients right now that I want it to. But then you'll realize that it's impacting so many more people than you actually realize. And it's very easy to get caught up in the metrics of like engagement and things like that. But like, you just don't know like how far that is reaching. And like you said, like getting diagnosis, like all that kind of stuff that's life changing, like they're going to remember that forever. So you really
literally.
can't like measure how far that reach has gone.
Yeah, that metric side of things so interesting because you do get so caught up in the engagement, and obviously being in marketing as well, like that's kind of what I do for a living, so you get so caught up in the engagement, the metrics, and how things are performing. But the people that come up to me, like there'll be people who don't share anything. They are the people who are impacted behind the scenes, who aren't even like messaging you or liking your stories or anything. They're just people that you're impacting, and you don't realize that. And I think that is something we need to think about more, into the fact that it's not just to do with that, and the impact that you do have on people is so beyond what you would imagine. And
Yeah.
that's such a lovely like feeling and knowing. And I need to remind myself that more, I think. Yeah.
Definitely. It is really hard because sometimes like you get very caught up in the day to day of like, okay, this isn't performing as much as I want it to, or like, why isn't this getting more reach? Like, you're trying to help people. But I
Yeah.
think very much in like the social impact space, the change making space, you really do have to look at it as a long game and be like, okay, this is having an impact over a long period of time. But at the same time, it's so hard. And like, I completely get it. Like, my background's in marketing as well. And it's like, you do get caught up on like, why is this post not performing? Why is this not having the reach that I
Yeah.
wanted to? Like, why is this launch not doing as well as I wanted it to? Because it's like actually making the business work, but also seeing that impact as well. So it's
Mhm.
constantly like that fine balance of making sure that you aren't getting caught up in the numbers, but you're also still taking them seriously because they are a really big part of your business too. So yeah, it's definitely an ongoing battle with that. But I know
Yeah.
you work a lot with one-to-one clients, don't you? Is that where you started once you'd qualified as a coach?
So yeah, essentially, I think it was probably maybe about, I want to say I waited about 4 months before I qualified. I think one side of me was like, I don't know if this was right, whether one to one was right for me, because I was like, I've always, I guess, we worked in a group situation. I maybe felt like I'd worked better in group situations. And obviously, doing corporate workshops and doing events is obviously working with one to many. And so I really held myself back. And then recently, I really realized that when I started to kind of open the doors a little bit more to one and speaking just to people one to one a lot more since I started growing my LinkedIn, I realized that that side of me and kind of, I guess, even just making an impact to somebody in like a half an hour quick discovery call is like this, and people would be so like eternally grateful for this literal 30 minutes that they'd had with you. And I'm like, I really need to like push this still. And I shouldn't have, like, I don't know why. Maybe it was like a little bit of that like imposter syndrome, like maybe coming in thinking like, no, you can't do one-to-ones, like you need to, maybe it feels less scary. I don't know, because I'm used to that. But yeah, I think, and also the impact you make and the connections you make and the bond. And I'm also like massive into like human design, and I think when I look into that as well, being the designer that I am, working in a one-to-one setting, bringing people in via word of mouth, having that connection, because I think once you meet me and you have that like I have that connection with people instantly, very much to the point I've always, in my circle, in my group of friends, even to strangers, like people will come up to me on a night out I've never met, they'll just tell me all of their problems. And I'm like, literally, we've met for 1 minute. And I just knew that like that's that energy that I provide, this safe, this openness for people to be able to like feel that they can tell me their, problems and feel, not judged and feel heard and held. And yeah, I felt like I needed to utilize it. And so yeah, that's kind of how it started to like evolve into more of a one-to-one as well.
Yeah, I think it's such a personalized experience, I suppose, isn't it? Like menstrual health, like it's so personal to everybody. I mean, there's a lot of common themes that we all experience, but I suppose it's maybe a vulnerable topic that a lot of people haven't opened up about before. So being able to create that safe space and make it feel like that you are the person that they can trust and go through that process with is so, so valuable. I completely relate to that people just come up to you and tell you their life story. I think that's, I don't know, maybe it's both of our personalities, just very open people. It's like, okay, we are now your therapist on a night out or wherever you decide it to
I
be.
know. It's like, it can be difficult though when you do have that energy and that nature. And I recently started doing some like energy work where they like clear your energy like pathways with like crystals and try and like, because, and it was the most intense experience, but it was worked so much. It really helped. And it's because when you are that open nature and you are that open person, it has so many great advantages, and you can really be with one person and have that connection straight away. But also as an empath as well, like you take on so much of other people's energy that you kind of then almost, it just then kind of follows you around, and you become this like energy kind of like sucker, and it like you take everyone else's and you're like walking around with like everyone's baggage and you're like, you need to stop. And sometimes it's really hard when you're just that person and that's just your nature, and that's something I'm learning that I really need to know. I've even been with clients and we've had one-to-one in person sessions, and unfortunately like this client was going through a whole lot of burnout and was dealing with a really difficult time, and her energy just completely, like I completely took it all in, and I left there feeling super anxious. I felt burnt out myself, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how susceptible I am to other people's energies. And so that was a learning curve that, what online is probably better, just because when you are in person, I think it's a lot easier for you to take on somebody else's energy like without even realizing. And so yeah, that was a big learning curve for me in like that space.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really interesting because I think a lot of people that identify as an empaths, or they kind of experience, like they can really experience empathy really deeply, are probably naturally drawn to these kind of roles of being a social impact founder or working in these spaces more than other people. But at the
Yeah.
same time, we do need to protect ourselves. And I think putting that boundary between in person and online is definitely a big one in terms of protecting your energy. But is there anything else that you've done to protect that, I suppose, if there's like ways that you've gone and, like you said, the energy healing and all that side of things, but is there anything else that you've done?
I think holistically, like I'm, working with healers and stuff like that, which I think is great. But also in a business sense, I'm very, very good at I would say saying no or not accepting may be something that I don't think is going to work well with, it's not going to be compatible. I think you can kind of go on that journey of like maybe bringing on clients or working with new people. And, recently, even just working with somebody that could have potentially been amazing, I just knew that the energy was off or it wasn't right. And I didn't want to put myself in that position because, I think those kind of things and being discerning about who you're actually working with, I think as a coach, and that can be hard, when you're a founder and you're, even new to, a startup, because you're like, you are putting like, I guess, money, because especially if you are a startup and you're, in the space, you're like, you kind of want to take everything on. You're like, any client that comes your way, you're like, yeah. And it can be quite difficult because you've got that balance. And so for me, it's like, I've been really good at being like, if it's not right, like the right people will come and the influx will come, and the slower months is fine, and not like taking things on that aren't going to be right for me. I think it is really hard. I think that's such a difficulty as a startup, as a founder, and that you have to navigate.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one thing I really wanted to ask you as well, especially considering our cycles and how we feel at different points of our cycle as well. I think sometimes it can be really, you can definitely lean into like, okay, I'm going to rest when I need to rest. I'm going to take that time out for me. But then there's also the other side of it where you're like, am I resting maybe too much? Am I like procrastinating maybe because I'm avoiding this particular
Yeah.
challenge and maybe I'm using it as an excuse? And I don't know whether that's something you've experienced or you navigated through, because I think that's definitely something that's come up for me is like, okay, when do I know I need to rest, and when do I know that maybe I am avoiding that difficult thing that I don't want to do? But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think right? Like you just know. Like it's one of those things because I think lately I've definitely needed the rest lately, and I have been having a bit of a rest period, but also there's one of there's a point where it can be difficult when you do take a gap or you do take a long rest, like how to kind of get yourself back up and like start again. And I'm even when I am taking a break of things, I'm always trying to do the little things just to keep me going, like, not stopping doing my yoga and not stopping like tracking or not stopping doing small things to keep me in that space, because you can easily fall into like that procrastination side of things. And it's something that I definitely have been like working and navigating myself. But it's I think you do know when you're like, this is not neat, like, in yourself. And but also it's like, give yourself compassion. Like, even if you're sat there and you're like, I know I'm avoiding this right now, and I know I'm procrastinating, and I know that, it's like, just give yourself some compassion. Like, we've got our whole lives ahead of us, and we're, especially at this age, I think we put ourselves under so much pressure, and it's like, girl, you've got a whole long journey of business. Like, if you want to be a business woman, like, this is long. And so take the time to procrastinate now, because you probably won't be able to as easily in the future. And yeah, I think we just need to be kinder to ourselves, because when it does get to a point, and I always say, like, there's an easy fine line where you can like really drop off, and then it's really difficult to get yourself back up again, mentally, physically, with work, with whatever it may be. But if you're still like kind of in that gap that isn't, I think, yeah, give yourself the compassion, but don't stop doing the little things for your mental, even if you are resting. I think making sure that you are meditating or doing some yoga or going to a workout class or going for a walk or getting outside, like all of those things, still keep pushing with those, I think, no matter what, because they are incredibly beneficial for your health. But yeah, it's the burnout side of things. It's really interesting, and when you can push yourselves to those places and then need it. Like, I think recently I really learned, because I think this is why I've been resting so much, because I learn, and it's funny, as a founder you learn so much all the time. and you know things and you still do things and you're like, I learnt this lesson ages ago and I still did it. Lately I did an in-person event, and it was back to back. It was amazing. It got great press, but it was all free, like as if I was a charity. I did back to back, seeing people. I think I seen like 15 people or something, like back to back. I was incredibly burnt out. It was all free, and I basically, yeah, had to take a like kind of period of rest. And it's something I was like, Emily, you kind of know this, like you do know this, but here we are. And it's fine. I think we just need to give ourselves compassion because, yeah, these lessons, it's fine. They're really, really important.
Yeah, and I feel like things keep showing up to teach us that lesson if we're not listening to it as well. So it's like, oh yeah, I have learned that before, but I've still done
Yeah,
that again.
yeah.
So
I
it's
think
like,
that's
learn
right.
it this time.
For sure.
So yeah, I think that's really, really important. Like one of the things that I often do with a lot of my clients that I work with, especially if they're neurodivergent or they're all kind of working through their own challenges, it's like looking at, okay, what is like a low energy version of this day that you could do, what is a mid
Mm,
energy version, and what is a high energy version, because often we can be really like ambitious when we're planning, and we can pack our schedule full of different activities, like we're going to do so many things, but then we don't really consider where we're at in our cycle, like what we're actually doing that day, like how we're actually feeling, all the other life stuff that we're juggling as well. And I think it's going, okay, well, what does a low energy version of this day look like? Like, is it still keeping those foundations of the meditation, of journaling, of going for a walk, exercising? Like they're key anyway. But then is there like one task you can do that day to move things forward and then you rest? Because I think guilt is like a really big thing that shows up for a lot of founders, is like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing like what I should be doing, I'm not progressing as much as I want to. So that's why I was really interested to ask you that question, because I think it can show up in so many different ways when we're resting, and I don't think we fully rest if we're feeling guilty too. So
so true.
yeah.
It's so true. We actually don't, like, if we're resting and still thinking about work, or I think sometimes if you are that type of person, your brain is on the go constantly. I mean, sometimes like I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking about work, and it'll
Yeah.
just be playing on repeat in my head, and I'm like, Emily, like you're supposed to be resting, and that is why meditating, doing all of those things is so important, because it is so easy to like get caught up in it. But yeah, the guilt, it's hard, and I mean, I'm getting better at it. I wouldn't say it's gone completely, and I've been doing it for like a while now, really like focused on it. So yeah, it's just something that, I mean, I always just think like I recommend, like I'm 40, like there's just no way I'm gonna feel guilty. Like I'm just gonna be like, I'm done with this now. Like
Oh,
too many years.
hopefully.
You
No,
just
I definitely think. Yeah, I think like it's that self awareness, isn't it? Like that self awareness of being able to notice when you're guilt tripping yourself and thinking, you know what, I don't need to be doing that right now. I think shortening that cycle, that loop of like, oh, I'm feeling really guilty, or I'm thinking about work and going, no, I need to actually just put this down for now, or I don't need to feel guilty about this. I think that's one thing that's definitely helped me. Like it doesn't get the guilt to always go away, and it still pops up occasionally, like still here, but I think it's that kind of like it's not going to leave, but maybe when we're 40 maybe it will do. But
yeah.
yeah, I think it's like really acknowledging like, okay, that is here, but I don't need to lean into that, I don't need to indulge that emotion. I can just put it down and go, okay, I am resting now. This is going to help me show up better when I'm back working, and really help you move forward as well. So yeah, really, really important lesson to learn. I think we're both still learning it, but I think yeah, it's a really big part of looking after yourself and looking after your energy too.
I mean, yeah, no, I totally agree. It's so true.
I know. So I know that you've got lots of different plans for your business moving forward.
Yeah.
So how much can you share with us, and how much do you want to share of what you got coming up soon?
Oh, do you know, so interestingly, like it's been, I'm in a transition period, I think, at the moment. I'm like, there's things that I want to go prioritize more, there's things I want to drop back, there's changes I want to make, with the business and like with my coaching career as a whole, and really new goals. But I'm in such a transitional period. Also, I am personally, I'm so crazy busy right now. I've got a house move which is happening next week. I'm getting married in like 8 weeks. So at the moment, I've got my wedding planning hat on, and I'm really enjoying it because whilst I'm like in this transition and I know like there's more to come, there's a big like website update happening, and just a real, not a rebrand, but a real refresh. I've learned so much like recently. I've learned so much about myself, and I'm just ready to really harness that. But I think whilst I'm going through these like crazy personal lives, it's like the last thing I need right now is to go on like a whole refresh. But it is happening, and I think after like summertime, when things are out the way, like we're gonna see a different like side of my business and me and what I'm about. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And also it's so important because I have been focused on a lot of other things, but just being able to be in that space of stillness and being in that space of not thinking about your business, it allows more understanding for you to happen. And I think just taking a little bit of a break has allowed me to realize lots of different things. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's really been an important step.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like being able to enjoy those life moments, like getting married, like moving, they're big things, like they're such big things that it's like we can really put our head down into our business and miss the other stuff that's going on in life and then feel guilty again
Yeah.
afterwards because you've missed out on that or you've not really given yourself the space to really enjoy that experience. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, you leaning into that at the moment is probably the best thing that you can do. And also, like you said, when you take a step away, you often come up with the best ideas. Like whenever I go on holiday, I'm always like itching to get back because I'm like, I have the best ideas
Yes.
now. So I think you don't feel like you have to be like sat at your laptop to be working on your business because often you're doing all the big picture thinking outside of
100%.
that
I
too.
love that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
being able to enjoy your life whilst it's happening. Like, these are some massive, massive things happening in my life. Like, getting married, it's such a big deal. And I think I'm so business focused. I'm so, like, my whole life, it just revolves around that. And yes, that's amazing. But yeah, you're right. Being able to enjoy it and take that time from being like locked in, yeah, to just enjoy your life whilst it's happening to you because you just miss it because it's just so quick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that ties us on really nicely to my last question, which is if you could go back in time and give some advice to your younger self, and maybe it is around enjoying that process, because I think that is such an important
Mm.
thing that we forget about. But if there was a self-made starter pack of a tool, a habit, and a book that you would recommend or you'd like gift to them and go back in time and give to them, what would it be?
I think for me, the habit would be to like learn to, I guess, being comfortable, like being in your like stillness and being in space and taking time out. Um, like consistently and feeling like that's okay. I think it would help with the guilt. It would be so helpful in your business. And I think, like I am doing now, you know, taking time, like the habit is to take time out and actually enjoy your life whilst it's happening to you, so you're not so caught up in whatever it may be, because like you've got a whole life ahead of you, and it's really important to sit in those spaces, and just enjoy life. And I would say, is it a book recommendation? Okay, so like I think I must have said this a million times, and it's because one, I don't read that much. Maybe the habit should have been to pick up books sooner and make like read, but I'm a podcast girl and I think you can learn so much from a podcast anyway. But yeah, I've never massively been a reader. However, the book by Florence Given is called Women Living Deliciously, and it's literally just a Bible to enjoying your life. Like living in joy, setting boundaries, no people pleasing, learning to say no, learning how to romanticize the little things, learning how to just enjoy your simple life wherever you may be. And I think that book from a young age, I think would literally be incredible. I think having that when I was a teenager, even younger, would have been incredible. So that book. And the tool, what would the tool be? Honestly, I think this about my children. I'm like, literally, the second they're like walking, they'll be like doing yoga, like they'll be meditating. Because if I imagine if you'd had 20 years of meditation under your belt, you'd be a whiz. Imagine that habit from a child. I think you could, because now, when you get, when you are older, it's so difficult to get into those, doing those tools, like, meditating or whatever it may be. And if you'd started from an early age and you'd had that understanding, it would be such a, it's a habit as well. It's such a habit that you would have like curated from a child that you'd bring in and it would just be part of your life. And they are, yeah, so beneficial to me now. So I'd probably say those.
And if there is a podcast, is there one that came to mind that you would recommend?
Oh, so I have literally just found this podcast, literally just, but it's called Modern Wisdom.
Oh, interesting.
Have
I've not
you?
heard of that one. No.
It's so good. And I mean, they're like, they've been going for ages now, but the conversations are, it's not like your standard podcast conversation. They're very in depth. They go on really interesting topics with really interesting people. And I would say that I wish I knew about it sooner.
Oh no, that's a good one. I'll definitely have to check that out. I think
Um,
they're all really valuable ones. I think, like you said, like being able to practice habits as early as you can, like that meditation would be a game changer. I wish I'd done that when I
yeah,
was younger.
I know. It's like bringing those habits in. It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Emily. This has been so interesting. I hope loads of people have taken lots away from this, especially about kind of really building a career and a business around your cycle and how you can really look after yourself in the process of building the career that you want as well. If people wanted to find out more about you, where is the best place for them to go?
So the best place to find me is on my Instagram platform at the moment, which is Femm Femm.collective. And I'm also on LinkedIn, just Emily Todd. And my website is under construction, but there is a link there for you to find me as well. But that'll be coming very soon. And I was literally thinking, my tool should have been tracking your menstrual cycle. Because that
It's a bonus one.
is the ultimate tool. I think tracking your menstrual cycle the day you got it would have been the
Yeah,
biggest tool. But yeah, no.
absolutely.
Honestly, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been great.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much for joining me. And everybody go and check out all of Emily's work. And I'm sure you'll learn so much valuable information from all of her different platforms as well. But thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you.